welcome in everyone to Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
Thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our great community here. On this show, we tend to cover the stories the mainstream media, the corporate media, largely ignores. Tonight, we're going to look at, wow, another whistleblower has suddenly died. This one related to Boeing, coming forward and exposing what Boeing was not doing with its 737 MAX planes. We're going to talk about that, which is just breaking. We're learning more details about this death. That's two, by the way, if you're keeping track at home. We're going to go into those details tonight.
We're going to talk about skyrocketing crime rates under the Biden administration. They don't want us to talk about that because it's an election year, but we can't help it. This is probably not a surprise to you. You know what else may not be a surprise to you is that Amazon censors books. Yes, we knew that. They want you to read books by Hillary Clinton and the Obamas. They do not want you to read actually books that will question their narrative, such as books that may teach you about vaccines. And this was all at the behest of the Biden administration. We have new Amazon files from Representative Jim Jordan, and we're going to go over it.
We're also going to talk about why politicians can lie and get away with it, not only in the United States, but across the European Union. And you sit there and wonder, like, what is there anything we can actually do about it? We're going to talk about that tonight on the show. So welcome in on this Thursday. Glad to see all of you guys here. Let us know where you're joining us from. I should mention, yes, please subscribe. I know YouTube once a month loves to go through and unsubscribe people. Please do that. Please hit the subscribe button if you'd be so kind. If you're not already a member here, we're live every day, Monday through Thursday. So good to see all of you guys. And on Rumble, you can hit the follow button as well. So yes, please do that. Let's get to the news, shall we? Let's not waste any time on this Thursday and get right into it. Another Boeing whistleblower has suddenly died. Stop me if you've heard this before. They keep dropping like flies. Now, if you're keeping track at home, that's two whistleblowers in 2 months that have now died. And these aren't some like low-level guys. These are guys who were blowing the whistle on major structural problems with the 737 MAX planes. Now, the whistleblower, his name is Joshua Dean, accused a Boeing supplier of ignoring defects in the production of the 737 MAX plane. He died suddenly. He was 45 years old. That's 2 years younger than me. Perfectly normal, I guess, to die at 45 years old. Dean's lawyer, Brian Knowles, said his client's death was, quote, a loss to the aviation community and the flying public.
Now, we should be clear, for those of you who were paying attention, just a couple weeks ago, we said there's a new Boeing whistleblower. He did testify before Congress, and we said, let's protect this guy. This is not the same guy.
Totally different
That guy was Sam Salahpour.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, everybody together, we're knocking on wood. Are you doing it?
Knock on wood for Sam.
I think he's still alive. Let's protect him. Unfortunately, we didn't look out for Joshua.
We didn't even know about Joshua.
We didn't know about Joshua Dean. We would have also sent a prayer for him.
So he, according to his lawyer, he possessed tremendous courage to stand up for what he felt was true and right and raised quality and safety issues with Boeing. Again, to his lawyer, aviation companies should encourage and incentivize those that do raise these concerns. Otherwise, safety and quality are truly not the company's top priorities. Now, another message that I wanted to read here from this one, 45-year-old Joshua Dean, a former mechanical engineer, quality auditor from Wichita, Kansas, alleged that Spirit Airlines leadership ignored the malfunctioning defects on the 737 MAX that he brought to their attention, including mechanics improperly drilling holes in the aft pressure bulkhead of the MAX. So there's giant holes just right in the bulkhead.
That doesn't sound good. I'm not a manufacturer of airplanes, but I don't like the sound of that.
Something tells me in a pressurized cabin environment, that's not something you want, is holes drilled
Pretty sure that's undesirable.
Bulkhead. When he brought this up with the management, he said that nothing was done about it. And so he filed a safety complaint with the FAA. So he brought it to his superiors and nothing. They didn't do anything about it. So then he had to go to the FAA and bring it up there. And he said that basically Spirit had used him as a scapegoat when they lied to the agency about the defects of all of this. Now, he's a former Spirit Aero Systems employee who said he was fired in retaliation for flagging all of these lax standards. So he was then fired in the company's Wichita, Kansas manufacturing plant. So he died this week after a sudden illness. His aunts and sisters said in posts on social media that it was tied to a MRSA vaccine or an infection related to MRSA. Now, his family said, they posted on social media, that he died from a fast moving infection, but he was otherwise in good health. Like he got pneumonia. Suddenly after this infection, boom, he was dead like that.
Yes, they did use the word sudden and fast spreading. Okay.
So, okay, we've had a number of these near disasters over the past few months. I mean, every day almost, I feel like in our newsletter, we're cataloging another Boeing disaster, another Boeing air problem, a tire falling off, a wing not opening, or not the flap not working properly. He told NPR back in February, by the way, Dean did, that he believed he'd been fired to send a message to others that were thinking about speaking out. He said, if you're too loud, we will silence you, was his message. So he told that to NPR. So yeah, of course, that is the case with other whistleblowers. Now, you'll recall before we look at, the details of some of the other reporting on this, let's remind ourselves what happened to the last Boeing whistleblower, John Barnett. John Barnett, he was, of course, shot dead in his car in a parking lot while he was in the process of testifying about the problems at Boeing. Even mainstream media reported that he warned his friend that he would not be committing suicide anytime soon.
I know that he did not commit suicide. There's no way.
First tonight, our investigative reporter Ann Emerson has new information in the death of Boeing whistleblower John Barnett. A close family friend of Barnett says he predicted he might wind up dead, that a story could surface that he killed himself. But he told her, don't believe it. Ann?
Tessa, Barnett's family friend Jennifer said they had talked about this exact scenario playing out, but his words seemed like a premonition. He told her, don't ever believe it.
I knew John because his mom and my mom are best friends. And so over the years, get-togethers, birthdays, celebrations, and, whatnot, we've all got together and talked. And, that's how we really know each other.
And when Jennifer needed help one day, Barnett came by to see her. They talked about his upcoming depositions in Charleston. Jennifer knew he filed an extremely damaging complaint against Boeing. He says the aerospace giant retaliated against him when he blew the whistle on unsafe practices. For more than 30 years, Barnett was a quality manager. He'd recently retired and moved back to look after his mom in Louisiana.
He wasn't concerned about safety because I asked him, I said, aren't you scared? And he said, and his voice and the way he would talk, no, I ain't scared. He said, but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide. I know that he did not commit suicide. There's no way. He loved life too much. He loved his family too much. He loved his brothers too much to put them through what they're going through right now.
And he basically told you not to believe it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Not true. He's got too much to do, likes breathing. And he did. He had a lot of plans and things that he wanted to do.
What do you think happened?
So, yeah, likes breathing. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm standing up for this. I'm there for 30 years. A newly revealed performance review explained why his bosses had a problem with him. He was overly knowledgeable, they said, in his performance review.
Almost to a fault.
Yeah. John is very knowledgeable, almost to a fault, as it gets in the way at times when issues arise. John likes to be right, and at times re-challenges issues that appear to be resolved at a round table. So, appear to be. Again, this is the beauty of this, right? Appear to be resolved, but they're not actually resolved, and so he's bringing them up.
I'm just so curious that you can be too right in airplane making.
Right. Isn't it better to err on the side of being always like that?
Seems like the perfect person to be in charge of like R&D and safety.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, not in this situation. So Kevin Gostola, journalist, says Boeing whistleblower John Barnett was found dead under incredibly suspicious circumstances. Apparently upset Boeing's lawyer because he could recite details of incidents from a decade ago and specific dates without looking at documents. Of course, this all comes on the heels of what Al Jazeera found when they went and armed themselves with hidden cameras at a plant. We showed you this video before, but it's worth remembering in context of this latest whistleblower dying. People there working on the floor of Boeing saying the exact same things that these whistleblowers have been saying, but they don't want to be even featured on camera. for fear of retribution. Here's part one of their journalists asked these employers whether they were ready to fly on these planes. Here was their response.
It's an iceberg.
So the National Transportation Safety Board, of course, which investigates airline events, was supposed to be able to get answers about, what happened with that Alaska Airlines flight. But of course, the Boeing had not been cooperating with the NTSB and hiding information, wouldn't release it to the NTSB even after repeatedly requesting it. We want to know who are the names of the individuals who've been working on these particular seats and doors. Who are they, and what information do you have? Share it with us. And they wouldn't share it. Here's this ABC report.
New scrutiny on Boeing. The Justice Department is now investigating the mid-air door blowout captured on camera in January. Transportation correspondent Gio Benitez is here with more. Good morning, Gio.
Hey, Michael. Good morning. Yeah, multiple sources are telling ABC News the DOJ is now investigating that door plug blowout. You see that video right there. You remember, of course, when that door plug flew off a Boeing 737 MAX 9 in January. While the Alaska Airlines flight was 16,000 feet in the air, the plane made an emergency landing. And while no one was hurt, the DOJ wants to know if Boeing violated its 2021 deferred prosecution agreement. That's when the DOJ was investigating Boeing for those two MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019 that killed more than 300 people.
So the NTSB then requested specific information, and then of course Boeing was stonewalling them on that. And then finally, U.S. officials say Boeing hasn't turned over records about work on the panel that blew off a jetliner. Finally took the head of the NTSB to tell the Senate that they've asked Boeing repeatedly for the names and information of the people that worked on that particular doors, the door plug, and Boeing had been hiding it. Finally, they came forward about it and finally gave that information over. But as the head of the NTSB said, Monday, she said, it's absurd that 2 months later, we still don't have this information. So I'll ask you again, what are they hiding? Now, 2 whistleblowers dead. 1 we know was shot and killed. This one, sudden death, very rapid, at 45 years old. And how many other whistleblowers out there that we don't even know the names of that have come forward and are under whistleblower protection right now? People who've been fired for telling others. I mean, I'm sure we're going to hear more of these stories coming forward here. How many other people have come forward and told their stories to superiors or had to go to the FAA and then they lost their jobs as a result of coming forward to tell this information?
And what comes of it? What will come of it? Now, we've had a congressional hearing. The testimonial that we heard from Sam Salapur recently, he said, this is a crime conspiracy. It absolutely is. So what? What will we get? Can we make this right? Can our society make this right? Lean on your lawmakers to do something. Do something. Feels like at the end of Spaceballs where they just all yell, do something into the microphone and nobody does anything.
Do something. I mean, you can go down the laundry list. We won't do it now, but I mean, the number of incidents that we've already had in 2024 is extensive, and it's frightening to look at all of the list, going down the list of the 737 MAX planes right now, and other 737s from Boeing. So, all right, we've got more news to get to here on your Thursday. We're going to look at why you've seen a number of reports recently over the past couple of weeks in the newspapers. You could watch corporate media, and they've all said the same thing. It's unbelievable. Crime across the United States in all of its biggest cities and around the country is plummeting in every category under President Biden. This is good news for President Biden heading into the election. However, there's just a little problem. Economist John Lott, who used to actually work with the data analysts at the FBI in the Department of Justice, says this is all a crock of garbage. He's just written a new piece for the Wall Street Journal that says the FBI is lying about these data points, and he's going to join us here to talk about that in just a moment.
Plus, Amazon is censoring the books that it wants you to read and the books that it doesn't want you to read. We now have proof of that, courtesy of Representative Jim Jordan, and we're going to take a look at that. We're also going to ask the simple question, kind of simple and obvious question. Why can EU politicians lie with impunity? Why do they get away with that? We're going to have Ralph Scholheimer on to make his guesses. Please submit your guesses. Why do they get away with so many lies? Let us know what you think.
But first, how would you love to de-Google your life? Well, our friends at Privacy Academy can help you do this. It's common knowledge that Google is listening through your microphones. Even the most anti-conspiracy people actually know that this is true. But did you know that Google has put in hidden microphones in their Google Nest device? And people didn't find out about it until 2 years after the device was released. Or that Google keeps your voice recordings and stores them for posterity. They do that. So if hidden microphones, voice recordings aren't enough, what about the fact that they track Android phone locations, even if your location services are off and you don't have a SIM card in the phone? They're amazing, aren't they? Well, I recently listened to a privacy class that Glenn Metter held, and he said that Google has even tracking codes placed into the fonts that websites use. That's unbelievable. They want to gather as much information as they possibly can. Well, of course, Google has come from the CIA and the NSA research grants. They were born out of the CIA. They want to fund Google in order to create a surveillance state. So, and here's what you can do to start getting Google out of your life. And Glenn really breaks this really down in a new De-Google Your Life ebook that he put together. And he'll walk you through step-by-step how to de-Google your life. It's a completely free, totally free ebook. Go and grab it right now. The link is on your screen. It's privacyacademy.com/redacted. You can own your own De-Google Your Life document. It'll walk you through step by step how to get rid of this stuff. I highly recommend you do, because everyone should get away from Google and take their online privacy more seriously. Again, privacyacademy.com/redacted. Well, if you listen to the corporate media or the Biden Justice Department, crime in the United States is plummeting in almost every major category. Listen.
Crime for 2023 in almost every category is down. That's according to new data from the FBI that runs counter to popular perception. According to a Gallup poll, 77% of Americans believe crime in the U.S. is up compared to a year ago.
But is that true? Dr. John Lott has penned a new piece for the Wall Street Journal, and he says, not so fast. And Dr. Lott joins us now. John, great to see you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. Your piece in the Wall Street Journal is titled, "The Media Say Crime is Going Down, Don't Believe It." Why shouldn't we believe it, John? I mean, I believe everything the corporate media tells me to think, so...
Well, you're a smart guy. What can I say? Headline after headline, it says what you say, and that is that crime's going down, violent crime's going down across the board. But people don't understand that, and the media is out there saying that people are mistaken. Maybe they blame it on, other media accounts or something. But my own point would be that I think the media just doesn't understand the crime data that they're using. And I think people have a much more accurate perception of what's going on. Look, there's two different types of data that we have on crime. There's the FBI Uniform Crime Reports. This looks at the number of reported crimes to police. And then we have something called the National Crime Victimization Survey, which surveys 240,000 people each year. They've been doing this for 50 years. And the point of that data is to try to get a measure of total crime, because we know most crime, most violent crime, and overwhelmingly most property crime isn't reported to police. And we also know that that share changes over time. And so you can have a situation, and I think we do see this clearly, where reported crime is falling, but total crime is increasing. I'll just give you a simple example. If you look at the change in violent crime from 2021 to 2022, reported violent crime for the FBI fell by 2%, but the National Crime Victimization data shows a 42% increase in violent crime between those years. And in the past, these numbers have generally gone very closely together. It's just been since 2022 that these two measures of crime have really just gone in completely opposite directions. And so the question is, why is that the case? What's happened since 2022 and on that's caused these two numbers that nobody's really kind of questioned before? Should we rely on one or the other, because they tended to go together, and now they're going in completely opposite directions.
I guess, yeah, that is a question. You stole the question right out of my mouth. Why are they going in different directions? Why haven't we questioned these numbers before?
Well, because there hasn't been a reason really to question them before, other than the last few years. But I think there's a few really obvious and simple explanations for it. One thing we know is that the rate that people report crime can be explained. And the big thing that explains it is whether or not people think the people who commit the crime will be caught and punished. If you don't think people are going to be caught and punished, people are less likely to go and report the crimes to police. And what we've seen over the last few years, and I don't think people appreciate this quite as much, they have some idea, is that law enforcement in the United States has just completely collapsed. I'll give you a simple example. You look at large cities with over 1 million in population. Their average arrest rate for violent crimes prior to 2020, for the 5 years before that, was 44%. It started falling in 2020, and by 2022, it was down to 20%. So the arrests for reported crimes, not for all, but reported crimes, fell from 44% to 20%. To put this in a different way, if you look at arrests as a percentage of all violent crimes, only 8% of violent crimes in those cities result in arrest. Only 1% of property crimes, all property crimes, result in an arrest. And that's arrests. So not all arrests result in charges. Not all charges result in prosecutions, and not all prosecutions result in convictions. And so, you're talking about, when you're talking about property crimes, you're talking about way less than 1% of people who commit property crimes are going to get punished. And so, and it's a very small percentage for violent crimes. So it's essentially riskless for a huge percentage of these criminals to go and commit crimes. And so you've seen a couple things. One is you've seen a big increase in crime because it's not, what do they have to fear for committing the crimes now? But you've also seen people not taking the time to go and report the crimes. I'll give you a couple of examples on this. I mean, we've heard stories from across the country where if you call up police in certain cities, they'll go and they'll say, well, unless the criminal's right there, right now, we're not going to send somebody out, but you can come down to the police station and write out a report, and we'll take it there. Well, you're making it more difficult, more costly for people to go and report crimes. It's not too surprising that they're going to be less likely to report them. But on top of that, people are also frequently told, particularly for many types of crimes, that nothing's going to happen. And so they think, well, you're making me go down to the police station. You're telling me that almost nothing's going to happen. There are reports that when people go and talk to the police, they say, well, I can take the report. Because, simply calling 911 doesn't report the crime. You have to have the police come out and actually write up a report on it. In New Orleans, I was just looking at some numbers. The average response time for 911 calls is 3 hours last year.
Wow.
And so what you've had happen is we had defunding the police. We had cuts, New York City cut the police budget by $1 billion a year in 2020. Chicago cut the number of police in 2020 by 400 positions that were there. We've had massive retirements for police officers across the country. Even in the last year, when you've started to hire more police, they haven't been able to hire enough police to replace those who are just retiring over the last couple of years. But it's, you get a new guy with 1 year of experience, he's not going to be as effective as some police officer who just retired, who had 10 or 15 or 20 years of experience that was there. And also, not only do you have fewer police to go and do the job, but you also have to moralize the police. In many of these urban areas, they have to ask themselves, what's the point of arresting people if I know they're not going to be charged, if they're going to be released as soon as I bring them in? And so, the police say, what's the point of going and arresting them? And beyond that, you've had changes in the policing rules. So a lot of places like New York City, Chicago has had this for a while, where you have to fill out all these forms whenever you go and talk to people. In Chicago, every time a police officer talks to somebody, they have to fill out 2 legal pages of forms that take about an hour on average. Wow. So you go and talk to 4 people in the morning, your afternoon is taken up with paperwork. Who did you talk to? Why did you talk to them? What did you talk to them about? Where were they? Other characteristics of the individual, one that they want to know the race and sex of the individual that you talk to. And so, the police officers think, do I really want to go and talk to somebody? Because if I just go and talk to somebody, I have to go and I'm going to be stuck with all this paperwork there. So police officers, not only are they less willing to go and arrest people, they're less willing to go and engage and talk to people and learn things about what might have happened with regard to the crime.
Do you think they're trying to hide something here? We have obviously a confluence of events, right? You have defunding the police. You have people who find out that they're less likely to do anything about it, so they're not driving down to the police department and filing papers instead of calling them to come show up at their house. Do you think that there's something nefarious going on here within the FBI or the Biden administration, Department of Justice, that's trying to hide something here with the way this information is reported and cataloged?
Right. Well, I worked in the Department of Justice for a while recently. I was senior advisor for research and statistics at first the Office of Justice Programs and then the Office of Legal Policy. And I could tell you war stories about dealing with the data people in the FBI, and I can get into that in a minute. But the general issue is, you look at the district attorneys around the country, these Soros-backed district attorneys, and they will say openly that they don't think that law enforcement deters criminals. Look, I'm an economist, and economists basically have this notion that incentives matter. If you make something more costly, people do less of it. If the price of apples go up, people buy fewer apples. If you make it risky for criminals to go and commit crime with higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences, you're going to reduce the amount of crime there. We recently did looking at these AI chatbots to see the biases that they might have. And we asked 16 questions of the 20 chatbots on crime as well as gun control type issues. And so we would ask, do you think higher arrest rates and conviction rates reduce crime? Do you strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree? And except for Elon Musk's Grok, the other chatbots would disagree with that. Things like Facebook's Llama and Google, their chatbot, would strongly disagree that higher arrest rates and conviction rates reduce crime. Do longer prison sentences deter crime? You just see across the board these AI chatbots saying that they don't think law enforcement matters. And so I think there's this view that's out there that some people, to me, it's not, again, I just can't get my mind around why people believe this, but that arrest rates and conviction rates and prison sentences don't matter. Things like the death penalty, they don't think matters. Things like, voter IDs, they don't think reduce vote fraud. And so that's kind of one view. I think there's that you have to acknowledge. Now, I'm happy to go and talk about the biases at the FBI. Here you can have a situation where, well, there are a couple of issues with the data. Since 2021, over 30% of police departments in the United States have stopped reporting crime data, reported crime data to the FBI. They've moved to this NIBUS system during the Biden administration. And it's not obvious why they would stop reporting this stuff, because you can go to the websites for these different cities, like New York and Los Angeles stopped reporting their crime data to the FBI. Now, it's not like it goes in there as zero in the FBI numbers. They go and estimate what it is. I would go and argue that they probably have done a pretty poor job of estimating what those missing numbers are. And I would argue also there seems to be systematic biases in terms of how they estimate these things. But but there's other problems there. There's apparently a number of police departments, when they have reported crime data to the FBI systematically changes the numbers that these jurisdictions provide them from places like Baltimore. So Baltimore will say, we've had so many murders, and the FBI data records it as 25 fewer murders than what Baltimore reported it to them as. And I've tried reaching out. I haven't gotten an answer yet as to why, but it seems to be pretty systematic. It's not a large number of places, but it's concerning that it's happening at all. And when you combine it with probably the errors that they have in just their estimates for the places that aren't reporting it, you have some real questions that arise.
So the piece, if anyone wants to read it, we'll have it linked up in the description below. It's called "The Media Say Crime is Going Down. Don't Believe It." So when you see all these news reports over the past few weeks that the Biden administration has really cracked down on crime, the Biden FBI is really cracking down on crime. It's safer in America now. Don't believe it. Dr. John Lott, great to see you. Thank you so much for this. We appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for your time. People can find more detail on this on our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org, if they're interested.
Perfect. We'll link that up in the description as well. John, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Isn't that crazy? So, yeah, of course they're lying about these crime statistics. It's great to hear from someone who literally was in the Department of Justice and knows how these data scientists are ideologues. I mean, a guy walks, guy just walking up to him, just like, yeah, I'm a Democrat. Those are the kind of people that I'm working with here inside the Justice Department. That's
we do politics at work.
Yeah.
Are we not supposed to?
That's what the FBI is doing these days. All right, we've got more news to get to here. We're going to talk about the Amazon files. Congressman Jim Jordan has just dropped the second tranche, I love that word, tranche, of Amazon files, and goes to show how deeply Amazon is working to suppress content, suppress books that they don't like. They don't want you to have information about, say, vaccines and other content, so they'll hide it so that they'll bubble up stuff to the surface that you actually don't want to read but are forced to. We're going to talk about that in a second. Plus, why are EU politicians and politicians in the United States as well, why can they lie with impunity? What can we do about it? We'll talk about that. But first, I'm excited about this. This is the biggest giveaway we've ever had here on the channel. We are giving one of you this fully customized Chevrolet Silverado Trail Boss Z71. That's right. That is right. Thanks to VNSH. Now, this is the holster company. This is not their average range day holster. It's designed to eliminate all those excuses holding you back from carrying daily. It is the most comfortable, discreet holster you've ever seen, and you'll forget you're even wearing it. This holster fits 99% of semi-auto handguns, offers versatile carrying positions, conceals 2 fully loaded magazines, plus it comes with an unconditional money-back guarantee. Now, to get your hands on this Chevy Silverado Trail Boss, all you have to do is click the link on your screen. It's vnsh.com/redacted. We'll also have it in the description below. Get yourself the most comfortable holster you've ever worn, money back guarantee. And then VNSH is hooking you up. Get an exclusive discount and extra entries and when you use my link below. So you can actually do extra entries to get your hands on this new Chevy Silverado Trail Boss Z71. Don't wait, because this giveaway ends on June 3rd. So vnsh.com/redacted. That, my friends, is the biggest giveaway we've ever done here on the show. So
yeah, look at that.
And that is a kick-ass holster. That is awesome. All right.
I recently was reading a book. It's called Letters to a Progressive Nation or something like that, where the statistics, who's a criminal justice professor, said that people who carry weapons are less likely to be attacked, even if they're concealed, and criminal justice professors think that it has to do with the way you carry yourself. You look like somebody who you don't mess with.
True.
And for whatever reason, and he was a professor in North Carolina, and he said even the liberal professors in his department of criminal justice didn't know that because they were so anti-gun, because most universities are, right, are so liberal. They just don't study the actual statistics of that. So it's interesting. I do recommend that book if you are of that ilk, but that's just another reason to check out that sponsor.
All right.
Okay. Well, we want to talk about this now. Amazon censors books. I know you are shocked, but now we have proof that Amazon did the bidding of the Biden administration during the COVID-19 pandemic. This comes from Representative Jim Jordan, who released part 2 of the Amazon files on his X account. And it shows that the Biden administration worked or works still, I'm going to go with works still, with Amazon to remove or hide books that they don't want you to read from readers. These are internal emails that Congress received from Amazon showing that employees were working to suppress books that were specifically critical of vaccines. In fact, we have heard this from our own reporting. A few months ago, we had Regina Wattiel. She's a statistician. She wrote the book Fisman's Fraud about the hate science that the Canadian government uses to torture the unvaccinated. The first time we spoke with her, we had an extra redacted conversation. We haven't played this for you before. This is what she said to us after the segment ended about what happened when she tried to sell this book on Amazon initially.
Amazon has been playing, some games, I believe. When I went, the day of publication, all the links to Amazon were actually disabled. And so nobody could even buy it on Amazon for the first week. So I had to do a lot of running around. And then when they finally did put the links back on, I cannot advertise through Amazon because of the content. So I can't even put out Amazon ads.
Okay. Why would Amazon do this for a book? Why? To readers. Because her book lays out all of the fake math models that the Canadian government used to torture the unvaccinated and falsely say that the unvaccinated were a threat to the vaccinated and then take away the civil liberties of the unvaccinated. Now, knowing that this happened to someone we know, I don't know her in person, but I feel like we all know her because she comes on Redacted and tells her amazing story. So given that happened to someone we know, it makes sense now when we look at these internal emails. Take a look at this. This is an email that came, these are internal emails from Amazon saying, okay, here's some talking points from the briefing with the White House today, talking about asking us to remove books or search filters or somehow downrank search filters. Now, here is an email that came directly from the White House. This one is from White House Senior COVID-19 Advisor Andrew Slavitt. Does that name sound familiar? If you are thinking that it does, I'll remind you who that guy is. He's named in the lawsuit that's currently in front of the Supreme Court, where the states of Louisiana and Missouri sued the Biden administration and this guy also because they were censoring information online about COVID-19, not just about vaccines, but other things too. So this guy sent this email to Amazon saying that, we need to talk about the high levels of propaganda and misinformation and disinformation on Amazon. So Amazon said, okay, we'll jump right to it. You say jump, we say how high. And what they did here in this email, you see what it says here, we're going to create a DNP class for anti-vax books. What do they mean by DNP? That means do not promote. So Regina Wattiel, her book is not anti-vax. It's about math models that were used against the unvaccinated. She does not talk about the effectivity or what's in the COVID vaccine. That's not in the book. She's talking about the models about vaccination rates, and her book was censored. So clearly she was put on a do not promote list because she can't promote it, and it was shadow banned. Now, it's interesting that this happens. What other books is this happening to? And I've read plenty of books about vaccine science. And every time, I will admit to you, I read on Kindle a lot, mostly because Kindle allows me to archive my notes and my highlights in a very easy way. But I know that Amazon is demonic, but I still use it. But anytime I go looking for a book such as Fisman's Fraud or Turtles All the Way Down, it does feel like Amazon has like the gears grind. They're like, we don't want to show you this, but you've searched it directly, so we will begrudgingly give it to you. Do you feel like that? Anybody do you? when you search books on Amazon?
Oh, yeah, you can tell. You can tell, like, this thing should be at the very top.
Yeah.
Because I literally typed in the title of the book.
Right.
But I have to scroll all the way down to even find the book with the exact same title.
I feel
it's
like
ridiculous.
I get a Matrix blip. It's like we don't want to. Okay.
We don't want to share this with you. Yeah.
Let me know if you have that experience too, because we're all readers here. Now, even though we have proof that Amazon did this and we know that it happened to Dr. Watil, guess what? Her book still went to #1 after she was on Redacted, because you guys are awesome. Your readers, you read it, you shared it, you told your politicians about it. And take a look here in Amazon Canada and in Amazon US. She went to #1 in, I believe it was the science and international sections.
And it wasn't anywhere near #1. And you guys, because you bought it. And then that's what happened because of actual organic growth. And then they couldn't ignore it.
Yeah.
Sadly, she couldn't do ads. She couldn't promote it. It was suppressed.
Yeah.
And that's the power.
You did that. You, viewer.
You guys are awesome.
Because you're awesome. Okay. Because the algorithm is not your friend, but you pushed back against it. So we're high-fiving over that. Are you high-fiving me right now?
I can also say J.J. Carroll, his great book called Invaded, The Illegal Immigration Invasion of the United States. Amazing book. It was not a #1 bestseller, and it was being suppressed by Amazon. You guys bought the book, and it went to #1. So I love that. Sticking it to the man.
All right. So we know that Amazon did this around vaccines and the COVID-19 pandemic. Do we think they do this for other topics too? Yes, we do. Absolutely. We have thought that for a long time, or at least I have. When Abigail Schreier released her book, Irreversible Damage, she said that Amazon absolutely was tanking her book on purpose because her book is about how it's a gender critical book. It talks about how there is a social contagion to transgenderism for young girls specifically, and that they are getting sex changes and dangerous experimental operations without having informed consent about how untested these things are, and it's causing irreparable damage to their bodies. It's a very well researched, easy to read. It's a great book. I do recommend it, but it's hard to find on Amazon. And here she is in an article in 2021 in the Free Press talking about it. She says this, Amazon pushes us to purchase specific books and away from others. If you're under the impression that the books Amazon recommends to you are based solely on the content neutral algorithm, I can disabuse you of that fiction right now. I once asked one of my sources at Amazon who was concerned about the ways the search results were being manipulated, whether he'd ever seen a book deliberately boosted. Yes, he said, Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Wow.
When that book came out, he told me virtually every search you did led to the recommendation to buy the former First Lady's book. Also, the opposite is true. She says there are books that are never recommended by the algorithm, irrespective of how well they've sold or how likely a shopper is to buy them, or at least there is one such book. I'll let you try and guess what it is. She thinks it was her book, Irreversible Damage, because of the subject matter that she was. Oh, did that light just go on?
Yeah, light problem.
Okay. Sorry about that. We're still going, though. We lost a light. So anyway, this is the kind of censorship the Biden administration is currently fighting to keep doing in the Supreme Court. Shame on Amazon for complying, but that's what's happening. Now, at least we have proof. So I can imagine if you're one of these authors, this is very validating. Like, yeah, I am up against the algorithm. That's how we feel on YouTube all the time. We're up against the algorithm. That makes us work harder. So let us know what you think. Read the books you want. And, I always review my books. Review them. It should help because the algorithm may be suppressing them, but at least you can sort of be pushing from below. So let us know what you think of that.
All right, we're going to talk about why all EU politicians are lying to you. What are they trying to hide? What are they trying to keep from you? We're going to get there in a second. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Lear Capital because the Federal Reserve did not raise and did not lower interest rates on the U.S. dollar, at least this week. We were hoping for something We got stasis. Okay, we know they're playing funny business with the US dollar. That's why it's a good idea to make sure that your assets are hedged with something that holds its value, like gold. So you already know that experts have been predicting a recession. You know the economy is volatile. So it's a good idea to think about how you can have things that sustain their value. So if you are interested in investing in gold, then our friends over at Lear will help you start purchasing precious metals or converting part of your IRA or 401k into a gold and silver IRA. So call Lear Capital today at 800-613-3557 or head on over to learredacted.com. Right now, if you buy 1 ounce of gold, they will give away 1 free ounce of silver. That's incredible. It's yours, free silver you can keep or sell immediately. There are a lot of gold companies to choose from. Lear has over 25 years of experience and thousands of 5-star reviews. So give them a call at 800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com, get your free gold and silver investor guide, and receive up to $15,000 in free bonus metals with qualified purchase. Once again, it's 800-613-3557 or head on over to learredacted.com. Why are European politicians such liars? Liar, liar, pants on fire. And why do they get away with it? That's a really interesting question, maybe the most basic question that we ignore and keep moving. So let's not ignore the question. Let's talk about it. We brought in Ralph Scholheimer. He's a political analyst and a European to discuss this. So simple question, but let's get to it, because why are they such liars and why are we used to it?
I think one of the main reasons is because the media allows them to get away with them, right? You surely recall there was always this idea that the media, they speak truth to power and they will kind of stand up to the dark machinations of politicians. But that is no longer the case. And we can go over all the major problems of the last couple of years, from COVID to the war in Ukraine, to inflation, to migration. So whatever it is, the threat to democracy, maybe something we also have to talk about in greater detail. All the things that are going on, right? Pretty much in every one of these areas, we are being lied to. And for a long time, your viewers know this, right? For a very long time, I always said, I think it's more incompetence than malice. And I always assumed that it's simply people that don't know what they're doing and it looks like a kind of a conspiracy. But I'm gradually coming to the conclusion there is more to the idea that this is concerted than I thought in previous times. And the main culprit, I have to admit, for me, is the media in this. I'm sure we all remember during Donald Trump, when I think it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, when they had Donald Trump's lie counter, where they, you had like CNN, a panel, and they said it's day, 25 of the Trump administration, and he has told 165 lies so far, including, when he said there were 10 million people at his inauguration. Of course, there were not 10 million people. I mean, it's Donald Trump. We all know that he embellishes. So when he says he's the richest man who's ever lived, everybody knew when there was exaggeration, embellishment, and when he was serious. But they just thought that everything he says was supposed to be a lie. Now, as soon as he was out of office and other people came into office, this completely disappeared. And apparently the expectation was that now it's absolutely acceptable to say the untruth again. And
so
really,
you're saying that there's like a juxtaposition, like Trump, they need him to be the ultimate liar so they can't point out other obvious liars. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, but I think it's even worse than that. I honestly believe that within the main media outlets, that they are either terrified or you name it, they're so afraid of that their power position can be broken, that they can no longer be the gatekeepers of information, that there are actually new movements and new media like Redacted, right, like Redacted coming up, that they lie because they think it's for a good cause. Because they must know, for example, take the European case, they must know Ursula von der Leyen is a politician in deep trouble. She's on the one hand incompetent, and there are serious allegations that she's probably corrupt as well. Any other politician of a center right-wing party that would behave like Ursula von der Leyen, like the media would have one headline after another about this, but nothing is happening. You see the same with Joe Biden. I mean, some of these things are just funny. What his uncle was eaten by cannibals, and when he was, his father told him in 1950 when they saw two men kissing on the street that this is what true love is. I'm not in America, but I'm pretty sure that no gay couples kissed in public in 1950. So or when he tells these stories about that his son died in Iraq, it's tragic that his son died, but he did not die in Iraq. Right? That's simply an untruth. So it's all these things, but we are supposed to accept it because the game they're playing.
Just today, actually, the Daily Caller published an average of how many times Joe Biden has lied just this year alone, and it was 1.3, but they're calling them gaffes. Not necessarily lies. It's a gaffe because he doesn't know any better. He just misspoke. You see how even that is a trick of the hand.
But it's even worse. So they're basically saying, oh, no, he's not a liar. He's just an idiot. Honestly, I don't know how that is any better. And I mean, again, I don't mean any disrespect to the president, but I mean, this is basically the argument, as you correctly said. So they are basically saying he's not lying. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how that should give anybody any kind of confidence. But you see it in other areas as well, right? We talked a lot on your show about Germany. We have now this huge report coming out that basically the German government lied to the people when it came to the issue of nuclear power. They said they cannot continue to run them, that they need to be turned off. Now we know that that was a blatant lie. We know that they lied about immigration, right? They said, oh, there are no problems with migration. It's just a few bad apples. Most of these people come here and they want to integrate and live like us. And now you have over 3,000 people demonstrating in Hamburg and demanding that Germany introduces the caliphate and Sharia law. So in all these areas, as I said, like we are being gaslit in the best case or lied to in the worst case. And it bothers me that the media plays, and I cannot stress this enough, that the media plays along with this. We are supposed to accept it because they are justifying their current lies with another lie, which is that because they're all fascists, they're all Nazis, they're all a threat to democracy. Just recently, the German head of the Social Democrats, right, she went on public TV and said the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, is a Nazi party. Now, whatever you think of the AfD, they're not a Nazi party. There are many things, but they're not a Nazi. It's a lie, right? It's a blatant lie. But you make this because then you can justify what they're trying to do, which is to ideally ban them before the next elections. So they use the lie that they are Nazis and a threat to democracy to ban the most significant opposition party, which I would argue is the one true attack on democracy. Because what is democracy if not having different political parties with opposing views? But they want to ban them. The same in the United States. Everybody of your viewers who lives in the United States knows that most of these court cases against Donald Trump are a sham, right? I mean, they're a joke. The hush money trial is a joke. The idea that if a politician pays a woman off to conceal an extramarital affair, I mean, it's not something that I condone generally from a moral perspective, but the idea that this is a campaign finance violation, I mean, this is all ridiculous. These are attempts to keep the opposition off the ballot. And it is frustrating that so many people play along with it.
But in Europe, it's even more insidious because I think most people understand the media is complicit with lies.
Yes.
They're just awful. In Europe, just as bad as in the United States. But now politicians want to regulate speech, and they even are giving themselves power inside Europe as far as your text messages. They think that they should be able to control the message, even person to person, not just the media. The media they've got on lock in Europe. To me, it's about as shameful as it can be here in Europe. But now they're going to go even further so that you and I cannot think this together. Why are we standing for this?
I have to admit, this is the big problem, right? It's because for many people, this is unfortunately also an issue. You and I, we are, politics junkies. Kind of, we do nothing but talk and engage with politics. But many people, that's not their own fault. They just rely on the mainstream and legacy media because this is what they get used to. So we have a kind of brainwashing going on that takes place almost on an unconscious level because it's much, much more difficult, particularly also for the older generation, but others on the younger generation as well, to get access to what is very often called in a negative way, but I'd see it as a positive thing, the so-called alternative media. So this is really going to be a battle. And they, as you exactly just pointed out, and they try, the legacy media and their, kind of political allies, they try to regain their role of gatekeepers of information. And it's all these weird terms they use: hate speech, disinformation, misinformation, or my all-time favorite is the so-called malinformation, which is defined as information that is objectively true, but could be used in a negative way. So, for example, if you and I say we have a problem with migration, then they might say, yes, this is objectively true. But the way in which Natalie and Ralph say it, that could be hateful, that could be hurtful to some people. So better not let them say it. The same we see now when you look at the war in Ukraine, right? Everybody who says, man, it looks like things on the front are not looking as good as they told us a year ago, then you are a Putin stooge. Then you're a mouthpiece of Putin, even though it is objectively correct. I mean, even the Ukrainians themselves admit that the war is not going as they were hoping it was going. And Corona, right? The COVID vaccinations, the same thing. Now, more and more evidence is coming out, completely understandable, that there is not a single medical procedure that has a 100% success rate and has a 100% zero side effect rate. So the truth is now coming out. But once again, the step is, it might be objectively true, but we shouldn't talk about it because it's denying of science. Climate change, the same thing, right? We kind of know now, if you go back to newspaper articles 20, 25 years ago, what's all going to happen. New York will be underwater. Real estate is going to collapse in Miami because half the city will be underwater. And of course, now people justifiably so say, well, you told us 25 years ago the world is going to end in 20 years. We are now 5 years over the expiration date of the planet. But I mean, if we look around, we're all still here. And in many ways, if you look at Florida, we're doing better than we did before. So people are skeptical. So next step is, well, we have to ban those skeptical opinions. So this is really one of the major battles we have to fight in the future, because it will be very hard to have an open political process if the debate can no longer take place. And allow me one final point. I always disagreed with Donald Trump when he said that the 2020 election was stolen, in the sense of, that somebody carried in ballots 5 minutes after midnight. So this is not something I might be wrong, but it's something I never believed. But did they rig the game, like when it comes to, how information was disseminated, which information was allowed? I'm sure that most remember when the Hunter Biden story was actively suppressed. Mm-hmm. We know now that another, I think a brother of Joe Biden, is in very significant financial dealings with Qatar, right? So all these stories, they have been actively suppressed. I think NPR, which supposedly, an objective public broadcaster, like they said they will not, they sent out this tweet and said they will not bother their viewers and listeners with stories that are not real, that are irrelevant, which was the Hunter Biden story. So again, this was an active attempt to suppress or to deny true information that would have been crucial. I mean, I want to know if the son of the president is taking bribes from foreign governments. I think that's a very relevant information. I mean, we were told in Trump's case that whatever Jared Kushner does is relevant, which I also think is relevant, but I think it's just as relevant in this case. And this is a real problem, because they try to clamp down even more. And I'm sure, you have also followed the new head of NPR is basically a crazy woman. I can only to check out the work that Chris Rufo has been doing on her. I mean, this is like in a satirical play.
Yes, you're right about this. But I like your theory about how it hangs on Trump as a figurehead, because if they point out how other people lie, they can't have as much fun with Trump, and they can't support an agenda. Because the media did have an appetite to question Obama and all of his wars on the Middle East, all the bloodshed he caused in Syria and other places, Somalia and those kind of things. At least the media was willing to ask questions. What's Obama doing there? They let him spin it that he's arming moderates, but it wasn't to call him an outright liar as fun as much as it was for Trump. So if we have these figureheads, these Boris Johnsons, these Donald Trumps, that we can say, well, they're blatant liars, the rest of them, not so much, then it gives them a power that maybe we hadn't foreseen.
Oh, you're absolutely right. But even in the case of Barack Obama, who I still think would be a fantastic guy to have a beer with. But when it comes to the truth, I mean, he also had issues with it. I remember, I think he has written 3 books in his life, or 4, and all of them are biographies of himself. I mean, I that's an intriguing business model.
Why do you want to have a beer with someone like that who's just going to talk about themselves?
Well, I just always find him, and I think I'm not the only one, I always find him likable, even though I find his time as president for the United States very problematic. I think he's a nicer guy than he was a president. But that being said,
if you were Syrian, you might not think that. I mean, the thing with I bought all of the stuff about the criticism of Obama was racism. I believed that for 8 years. But once he left, and I studied his history of upping the drone wars in the Middle East and how hypocritical and deadly that was, I don't think I want any beers with Barack Obama.
Okay,
but you can have one,
enough.
and then you ask him about his murderous record, please.
But that being said, even he, in one of his biographies, I think he was writing that his uncle in Indonesia, I think it was also an uncle. I don't want to lie. But there was a story that he died as a resistance fighter against the Dutch. And then his biographer wrote, well, that story is not entirely true. He actually died because he fell off a chair when he was hanging up curtains. Or another story was about his white girlfriend while he was at Columbia, which then was known as a so-called composite girlfriend, when it turned out that woman never existed. But it was kind of what it would have been if he would have had a girlfriend. I mean, this is also how my dating life works, right? It's mostly imaginary girlfriends, but you can see, right? This was always just well, they say all these things. It's not really a lie. It's creative, and it's they are such. And there I agree with you. Right? It's just the argument is they are just such good guys in every respect that it's okay if they bend the truth. Whereas again, as I said, if Donald Trump made a joke, it was it was the end of the world, and it's as you say, it's frustrating. Yeah.
There was a podcast recently with Jason Bateman and, who are the dudes? These 3 actors that did a podcast with, let's see, Obama, Biden, Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
And who was Bush there? I think Bush was there. We'll put the image up on the screen. I think we have it. But that really upset me because they all are getting these coolness points and all 4 of them are murderers. And so they're like, hey, look at us Hollywood actors. We're going to talk about how we really love America and we do good things and we're better than most people. But they're murderers and they're liars. And they are given this status, celebrity status, that really just made me so sad. So if you are ever invited to something like that, you go. I'm not gonna. And you ask the questions. Why are you guys liars and murderers?
In my defense, because at the same time when the event you allude to happened, right? I think Donald Trump was in New York at the wake of a slain police officer, and I always find in these stories that Donald Trump is much more authentic and relatable than anybody else. I always find the obsession that particularly politicians on the left have with celebrities disgusting. I think we are supposed to be ruled by politicians and not by wannabe celebrities. And by the way, I always find this, as if I might say this a little bit in defense of Donald Trump, I find this so funny. He was a celebrity, but he doesn't necessarily seek out their attention. But I just recently, there was, I think it was Drew Barrymore, and I'm not sure in which movies he was after E.T., and that was almost 30 years ago. And she had Kamala Harris on, and she said to her, Kamala, you have to be, I think she said, Mamala Harris, because she must be the mother of the nation, which is, I find this idea that the president or the vice president has to be the mother of the nation, that is a personality cult. And Joe Biden was on with Howard Stern, and Howard Stern said, I'm so glad you're on with me because you are the father this nation needs. And I said, well, no, I know many Trump supporters. I don't know a single Trump supporter who ever said, man, Trump, that's the father of the nation. Nobody would ever say such a thing. It would be ridiculous, and it's just even more ridiculous for any other politician. That's a personality cult. The personality cult has always been on the left, and it has always been worse with the media. I remember one last example, actually 2 examples, if I may. One was he was David Brooks in the New York Times. And he said, well, you can tell that Obama will be a great president because the way his pants are perfectly greased, which, again, completely absurd. And the other one was Andrew Sullivan, whom I generally like very much, who said that, yes, when Obama becomes president, like this will be a massive shift in the world, because every person in Pakistan who sees that the United States made a person of color president, they will immediately switch their position and their opinion on the United States. And as you correctly pointed out, I don't think that the people who have been droned in Yemen care a lot whether or not the president who gave the order to send those drones is black or white. I think it's the drones that matter to them, not who sent them. But this is the absurdity you have so often in the media. They are the ones, I find this so interesting. They always accuse the right of a personality cult. They accuse the right of being susceptible to authoritarian figures, but it's exactly the other way around. Everything they claim about the other side is what they do themselves. It's really a mirror image. And as I said before, the same is true about the so-called threats to democracy. You have from the United States to Germany and in Austria as well, you have the governing parties try to weaponize the legal system against the opposition parties, because the opposition parties are supposedly a threat to democracy. But what they are doing is an actual threat to democracy. At the same with Donald Trump. If you look at the things that Joe Biden did, whether it's the number of executive orders or his insane plan to cram down mandatory vaccinations on 80 million Americans, but Donald Trump was the authoritarian. Like, this is, again, it's the complete opposite. And I think we need to point this out more and more, because I do know that many people, independents, low propensity voters, people are not immersed in these political debates. They just get the information from the surface. And then they say, well, both of them seem bad, but probably the guy the media says is worse is actually worse. And I think we have to push back against this as much as we can.
All right. Well, we're going to keep doing that. When we see lies, we're going to say those are lies. People can share it. I mean, little things we can do. Retweet it when you see that that's a
For
lie.
example.
The little things like that. Tell your friends when they share an article. These things are lies. These are the small ways that we can expand reason in our age of unreason. So thank you so much for all of this, Ralph. It was great to talk about liars and murderers, and we're going to do our best to make sure we live in a society without those people.
Thanks for having me, Natali. Anytime.
All right. Well, let us know if you would have a beer with the murderous Obama. Go ahead.
I'd have a lot of questions. If he's buying the beer, I'd have a lot of questions for him.
You would attend. Yeah.
Oh, I would attend.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
As a journalist, I would attend.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions. I bring a binder full of questions.
Okay. I don't want to
As
go.
long as he's footing the bill.
Is it
on
okay
beer.
if I sit this one out?
You can
Do
sit
I
it
have
out.
to go?
No, you don't have to sit it out.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us at Redacted this week. We are only live Monday through Thursday, but we will have shows all throughout the weekend. So please, not shows, content. So keep visiting the channel, if you will.
And we have a newsletter. You should please subscribe to the newsletter. It's fantastic. It'll be back on Monday morning. We deliver it to your inbox. Just go to redacted.inc. Put in your, not .com. People say, I can't find it. It's .inc. Put in your email address, and then you will receive a welcome email from me. You have to confirm it. It might go to your spam or to your junk folder. Confirm it, and then you'll receive the newsletter first thing Monday morning when we publish the next round of it. Sorry, I just got the hiccups there. Very excited about the Redacted newsletter. Redacted.inc. Grab your free newsletter. Perfect way to start your day. So thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, everyone. Again, we'll see you back here live on Monday, and we have content throughout the weekend. Have a great one, all of you guys. Be safe, be kind to each other, and don't hang out with Barack Obama.
I mean, if you want to.
Unless you want to, I guess. Or Big Mike. Bye, everyone.